Hi, happy Friday. Welcome to PJ Knits. This is April 27th, mid-afternoon in central Illinois. I took the afternoon off so I could come home in the great weather and do a few things and also get this podcast in because it's been a couple of weeks and I wanted to check in with all of you. Today's episode is called Scrappy Things, which will become evident later on in the podcast. Welcome to new viewers, and for those who are returning, thank you. Thanks for listening in. It's so nice to keep in touch with you, for those of you who have done some comments below, and I hope that more will do that as we go along. My name's Penny. I live in central Illinois, and on Ravelry, I'm Penny J, and on Instagram, I'm PJ Knits, and I have a blog that I have been documenting my knitting for some time. It's www.pjknits.blogspot.com. I just want to do a little cleanup from last episode, and I think I spoke on the yarn shop in Naples, Florida, and I wanted just to correct myself if I got it wrong. The correct name is Castle Creek Fibers, and it's a cute, great little shop, and I wanted to make sure that I got that correct in this episode. On the needles, right now I have two projects that I am concentrating on. I finished one. I took a little time out last weekend and did a kind of just a bulky, quick sweater for spring, summer. It is downstairs on the table, waiting to be blocked. So I'll show that at a future in a future episode. So I knitted on it a little bit, and it only took 2 days, which was super cool. And I'll talk about that again at another point in time when I can show you the actual sweater that I knit. But what I'm working on right now is a couple of things that my concentration right now is on my Friendship Road. I had to rip this back a ways because I had some stitches that were a little loosey-goosey in the road, and I made myself a promise that I would not let those go this time. I would make sure that they looked good. So I've been working a little bit on this early in the morning before work, just because it's all in the round, and you can put that down when you need to. So that's Friendship Road. And the other one that I'm working on, that I bought this kit again at in Naples when I was down there, and this is called Baby Gradient Blanket, and this is by Fezza, and I have finally started that second yarn that they had in the kit. And so I'm hoping to get some progress on this weekend. So this is a nice one to sit at night when I'm watching the Cardinals play and knit on it. It's not super fast going because it is on a fairly small needle. It is on a size 2. It's actually size 3, but I am a very loose knitter, so I had to go down. So I'm working on that right now. Those are my two main projects that I'm working on at the moment as far as my knitting's concerned. One of the segments that I think is going to be a regular now is called Books and Bags. And in keeping with the Scrappy theme, I went to my library, which is my personal library upstairs, and I pulled out some books that I thought it was so fun because I wasn't sure that I'd have anything. I thought, well, I have one. And it turned out I had several, and I just want to share them from you. And it was very, very interesting. When I went today to look at the copyright on these when they were published, it was interesting how long they've been in my library. But anyway, the first one I wanted to show you, this is called Knitting with Bits and Pieces, and this is from House of White Birches. This has a copyright of 2002, and this is interesting. And I just pegged a couple of things because I'm going to talk about these mitered square blankets. But in 2002, this was kind of like a cool thing. Isn't that neat? And has potential down the road. We all have scraps. And so, this gives me some interesting ideas. And the other thing I'm always looking for is something to do, different patterns for hospice blankets. And when you do a lot of knitting, you tend to have a little bit of leftovers, and I keep those for a while, and then I donate them to people who are doing crafts or things like that. But it's funny how some of these knitting bits and pieces actually have some great patterns for hospice that you can use, and doing some different ones. or just for blankets for people in general, if that's what you want to do. But I thought this was interesting because in keeping with that mitered square blanket that was popular, is popular. Even 2002, they had, here's a little vest in this one, which I thought is, it's like, wow, they were ahead of their time a little bit. And then finally, this one also had knitted samplers. And another one, easily could use your scraps for, or you could buy color combos to do it as well. This is a huge blanket. I would cut that down for hospice, but isn't that nifty? So that's Knitting with Bits and Pieces from House of White Birches. I know they were a popular publisher back, and I think maybe you would get like a little advertisement in the mail about those and buy them. Maybe that's where I got it. It's funny, in hindsight, I wish now that I would have put in where I purchased these books, because it would be interesting to know when I picked them up. I thought I'd always remember that, but obviously not. And in this next one, this is interesting. This is a Horst Schultz book, and this is called Exciting New Patchwork Knitting, Pullovers, Jackets, and Waistcoats. And this is interesting. This one has a English run of 2000 is when it was published, in 2000. And the thing that's so interesting about Horst Schultz is I remember going to a Stitches Midwest, and that's when they were doing it at Pheasant Run. It was small enough that they could leave it there instead of taking it to Rosemont. And I remember going and listening to him on a lunchtime talk. And when we went to this one, he was very popular back then. And the thing that was so cool is that we would go on a Thursday and come home on a Sunday, and we would take all of the classes. I mean, we were classed. We would do a little shopping in the market, but we were like Thursday afternoon, starting out with that, and then go right. We just really did the thing. So here he is. And that was so funny, because it was like, I remember seeing him there, and I had one of his books. Now, I've not ever used anything in here, but it sure was nice reading, and I added it to my collection. And then, fast forward a ways, the rave then started to be Koigyu. That was hot property, and this is called Knits from Painter's Palette. Again, a lot of that mitered square. And a friend of mine has a jacket that was just recently knit from a pattern from this book. This one's 2006. And because Koigyu is always one of those yarns that was hard to come by, still is, but and not necessarily the cheapest yarn, let's just put it that way. But this is has some interesting things in it as well. It was always the palette and the colors that were so cool, and the fact that you really couldn't get this yarn anywhere else. And those mitered squares, very, very small. Here's a vest. Again, another vest done out of Painter's Palette book. My friend has a jacket, and it's a long jacket. It is just gorgeous and looks very good on her. But again, very much a time-consuming knit when you think about it. So that is Knits from Painter's Palette, and that's so cool as well. Some great books that are scrappy out of my library. I just thought it was interesting that I had those, and I had something to actually show you. So then, back in 2016, end of 2016, beginning of 2017, I had foot surgery, and it was off for a while. And I was also at the same time having some issues with my hands, and was worried that I was going to be spending about 10 weeks off and not being able to knit. And so at the time, I was watching a lot of video casts, and they were doing some scrappy blankets on several of them, and they were doing crochet blankets, and I did crochet, and I thought, well, that might be a good starting point. Maybe it's a different feel for the hands, and I could try that. So what I did is I started a crochet blanket from some scraps of sock yarn that I have. And this particular one right now sits downstairs next to my washing machine and dryer. And while I'm waiting for the washing machine to fill up, I just knit a little bit on it with some leftover sock yarns. Now, some of these are mine, and some of these are ones that my friends have donated to me when they're done with their socks or whatever they're doing. You can see it. This thing is going to be huge. So this will probably go on our bed someday, but look how big it is. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. And there's some yarn in there. Does somebody, Kim, do you recognize your yarn there? I used a little bit of it into my crochet blanket. Isn't that cool? So this, it sits down there. And the thing is, I may just do a little bit each time as I'm waiting for it to fill. And so it sits down next to the washer and the dryer. So while I was doing that, I thought, you know, I'm going to knit a little bit as well. And what happened was there seems to be some memory blankets out there, what they're called. And so I found through Ravelry, this particular one. It's called Memory Blanket. This is by Georgie Hallam. This is one, okay, free pattern. And I thought, just going to knit a little bit on it and see how that does. And this one doesn't get as much love downstairs, but this is this is it. And these have a lot of yarns that I've used, but also when my friends when I told my friends I was doing a Scrappy blanket, they just kept giving me theirs. So this is so super cool. Now this one is done on this is a mitered square one, and this is done on a size 3. And what I started out was on a size 3 circular needle. And then I was watching another podcast, and they were talking about signature straights and using signature straights for their Scrappy blankets. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to order those. So I ordered the 11-inch ones. Okay, I was using that one for a while. And then somebody else said, well, you know what's cool, really cool for these small squares is the signature 9-inch. So I bought the 9-inch. And this just resides in my Scrappy blanket. Okay. So that's what I'm using for this particular one. Okay. So scrap blanket number 2. So then, as I do, I saw another blanket free pattern. It's called Make a Long Story Short Blanket. And I'm like, okay, how about let's do this one? Who needs 3 scrap blankets? But you know, I have a lot of scraps now. And so this one's not very far. And this one's going to be a corner to corner. Number 3. So those are kind of the Scrappy blankets. Just to give you a idea though, here's my scraps. Bag full of scraps. Oh no, that's not it. Bag full of scraps. And I have another bag. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what happens, what I'm finding now with my scrap blankets are that I'm starting with my little mitered square, and I take a ball of yarn out of here, make a mitered square. Whatever's left, then it goes into the crochet blanket. And then if there's any left after I've done a repeat or 2 repeats across on the crochet blanket, then it will go into the 3rd blanket, which is not very many goes into this right now, because as you could tell from my sample, I'm not knitting a whole lot on that one. So that's what's happening. And if there's still some left, then I have a vase that it's going into downstairs, and it's just sitting there for pretties. But anyway, Scrappy blankets. Now, I know that there's a word for me. There's something you should call me. But anyway, because I was watching a podcast, and dog. She's German, and I just slaughtered her name. But anyway, I watch her podcast, and her mother was here, and she was knitting a Scrappy blanket while she was visiting here, visiting her daughter, and it was all in similar colors, like blues or dark blues or navies or beiges. They were all the same tone because they were for a grandson, which got me this thinking, because I am a color of the sea person. And I thought, I've got some yarns that would really lend to a colors of the sea blanket. So, no, I have not started knitting it yet, but I have started collecting the colors. And I'm putting them in this super cool bag that I bought, that I ordered from Whimsy Stitches. This is our bag of the week that I wanted to show you. Isn't this cool? I love this bag, and I can see some more of these in my future. But saw Rick at ZK last year, and I ordered this there because he was out at the time. But isn't this cool, super cool? I love this. And what I am doing, as you can see, is I'm collecting all the colors of the sea. And this is going to be a scrap blanket, and this one's going to be mine. Is that not super cool? And I will link in the show notes on my blog, is where I put the show notes. I could do some nuts right now. No, anyway, having fun. Anyway, I think that is super cool, and I just love that clear plastic bag too. And it has my signature needles in there from the first time, all ready to go. I think that's super cool. Anyway, so I'm super excited about that at some point in time, but I don't know yet if I'm going to do the smaller squares, or if I'm going to do a little bit larger squares. I've got time, but I'm collecting those. And thank goodness for Knitting Friends. Aren't they the best? I've told you that before, but they are. And they are giving me their leftovers. And so they're going into one or two of my blankets. So anyway, I wanted to share those things. Those are kind of the scrappy things that I'm knitting right now, and loving it. And of course, it's a long-term project. It's not something that's going to be done right away, and it's not something that I have to have done right away. So I'm having some fun with that, and wanted to share. Now, just to clean up on the books and bags theme, we have a winner of the Molly Klein Design bag, camping bag, and I did a random number generator, and the winner of the bag is Annetta. I loved Annetta's post. I liked all of the posts. Loved hearing from you all. Annetta, I think we're kindred sisters, because I like to change my bag up depending on the season as well, or the project, so I can eagerly figure out what's in what bag. But y'all know I have a lot of bags, a lot of projects bags, so you have to have a system of what's in the bag when it's close. So anyway, Annetta, if you will PM me on Ravelry and give me your address, I'll get this out to you next week. So congratulations. And I'm looking forward to future giveaways, because that was fun to do. Just to have a little bit of stash enhancement today. I know. I said last time that I got to stop doing that. I really got to stop doing this, because I have a lot of yarn, but I could not resist a couple of things. Excuse me. I picked up at my local yarn shop a new book. I talked about these before. This one's called 60 Quick Knits for Beginners. Cool. I just thought it would be a cool one. Again, this has some nice things. A lot of times you'll get, as knitters, you'll get people who will want to learn how to knit, just on the, a side note, they'll say, hey, I always wanted to do that. And so I think it's always good to have some things in your library that you can go back to and see, you know, hey, this would be a good project for new knitters. I have a niece who's a new knitter, and I just think it'd be fun to pull, kind of pull some of these things out instead of just always doing a scarf or whatever. So I picked that up at my local yarn shop. And again, these are all done from Cascade 220, which is, readily available here, and a nice good yarn for beginners, I think. So I picked that up. And then in keeping with ZK that's coming up in June, it will be here before we know it, I'm trying to get some things to help Team Love out. And I bought a couple of yarns, and this ordered from Suburban Stitcher. Well, what happened first of all was Prairie Girl Designs. She also attends ZK, and she did a new pattern, and this is called Sharp Arrow, and I really like this style of shawl pattern. So I saw that it came out, and she's an attendee, and so this will help with a bonus for designer bonus. And again, most of all, I liked that design. Well, there you go. Huh. I like that design. I like the way it lays. Okay. And I thought, well, this is done out of Suburban Stitcher's sock. She also attends ZK, so I can get some more bonuses. And I couldn't decide which yarn I liked the best. She had a sock yarn on there. And so I bought 2 skeins of each of these. This one's called Sweet Adeline. Look at that. We'll go with what I have on today, wouldn't it? Yeah. But then I also bought Sari Silk. And I thought this could also be a hospice. I could make 2 of these and make one for hospice as well. When I got these, I'm like, wow, I'm thinking those 2 could go together as well. Even though the pattern only calls for 1 color. And I think I'm going to start with this one, just because I saw today that this would go with what I'm wearing. That would be cool. So this is the one. So those are from Suburban Stitcher. This is Pure Sock. So I'm looking forward to that. But I cannot start these until my other 2 projects are done. Well, I think that's all I have for you today. That's the extent of it. In Central Illinois, it's going to be a great weekend. It's going to be sunny. Spring has come. I'm so pleased about that. Just been looking forward to it. So I hope you all have a great weekend wherever you're at. And until later, knit on with confidence and hope. Bye.